Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council. It is Monday, the 6th of January, 2020. Happy New Year, everyone. And ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Councilor Herrera.
Here.
Councilor Parsons.
Here.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Council President Freeman.
Here.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Kohler.
Here.
And Youth Councilor Wolford.
Here.
Thank you very much. If you are able, would you please rise and all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I don't have anybody from one of our committees signed up to talk tonight under committee reports. So we're going to go to public testimony. This time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for public hearing. We have one public hearing planned for tonight. That is the liquor license application, change of ownership and trade name, Tequila Nights, new trade name, Area 51 Bar and Grill. So we'll take that under 7A, and then what I would like to do with the indulgence of council, if people are here to talk to us about item 8A, is to take that public testimony just prior to us taking up that matter. Is there any objection? All right, so we will do that. I don't have anybody signed up for public testimony on any other issue other than item 8A. Is there anybody who would like to address council on any other matters than that? I would invite you to come forward at this time. No special orders. All right, Tracy is checking. All right, then we will go to public hearing, which is item 7A. I will open the public hearing on the liquor license application, change of ownership and trade name, Tequila Nights, new trade name, Area 51 Bar and Grill. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On December 6, 2019, the city received an application for a change of ownership and trade name for the liquor license at Tequila Nights, located at 3393 River Road North in Keizer. The application is for a full on-premises license. Trade name will change from Tequila Nights to Area 51 Bar and Grill. As required by Keizer ordinance, a public hearing was scheduled. Notice was published and mailed to all property owners within 200 feet of the establishment. Keizer Police Department reports a clear background check on the applicant and has no reasons to recommend denial. In addition, the Keizer Community Development Department finds the location of the establishment to be properly zoned and had no additional comment. It is recommended that the public hearing be open to allow testimony from the applicant or other interested individuals, and upon completion, the hearing be closed. It is further recommended that the council recommend approval of the application for Area 51 Bar and Grill under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and then the recommendation will be forwarded to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report? Is there anybody signed up to testify? Is there anybody who would like to testify on this public hearing regarding the change of ownership to Area 51 Bar and Grill? All right, then. I will close public hearing. Council President Freeman.
I move that the Keizer City Council recommend the approval of the application for Area 51 Bar and Grill under the guidelines established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer. Also forwarded this recommendation to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council recommend approval of the application for the Area 51 Bar and Grill under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and forward this recommendation to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Wish them all the success in the world. That will take us on to item 8A. Administrative action on an ordinance prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way, declaring an emergency. So my plan is to have the staff report and then invite testimony, and then we will go to do a conversation about next steps. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Attorney Johnson.
Thank you, Chris, Madam Mayor, and Council. A few weeks ago, there was some concern expressed regarding the regulatory structure with regard to camping on public property or remaining past closing hours. So I reviewed our set of ordinances. We basically have two currently that we use. One is a combination with regard to parks, is the park regulations themselves, which are an ordinance. And the parks are closed from dusk to dawn. We also have a resolution that was adopted just almost a year ago, or early 2019, a resolution by the council that authorizes the city manager as the person in charge with regard to deciding if trespassing is in order. So it's similar to a manager at a store, in other words, is this trespassing or not? And under that resolution, Chris has, by administrative order, determined that parks, when they're closed, dusk to dawn, city hall property, unless you're here for business, when they're closed, people can be trespassed from those vicinities. However, upon looking, and we do have another ordinance, it's really more for street obstruction, and actually started out for debris in streets with regard to construction activities, but it has a broader section too that says you can't obstruct any right-of-way. And that right-of-way area, as many of you know, maybe the public does not, includes not just the street, but typically the area from the inside edge of the sidewalk next to the private property to the street, including any landscaped area between the sidewalk and the street. It's typically a right-of-way area. And although that ordinance does seem to cover it, it only really covered obstructing it. So my concern was, if someone says, well, I'm in that area, but I'm not really obstructing anything because no one's coming by, I'm not blocking anything. Although I think that'd be a hard argument to make, I was concerned that somebody would say, well, I'm not really obstructing anything. So I prepared an ordinance that's based roughly on Salem's, and I'll get into the details of that in just a minute, that they recently passed regarding camping. And although it says sidewalks, public right-of-ways, and public property, it really is designed mainly for right-of-ways. I left in public property for areas that maybe is not covered by the other resolution and administrative order that I discussed. In context of doing that, and many of you have heard, is a recent case, it's almost a year old or more now, Martin versus the city of Boise. And so I'll try not to bore you, but you can wave if this gets too legally intense, but you can't start waving yet, Chris, I'm sorry. But to me, it's fascinating, but that, I'm an attorney. Weird things are fascinating to me, I guess. The argument, which was very creative from the plaintiffs, some homeless people, was that Boise's two ordinances, one against sleeping on public property and another against camping on public property, were criminal ordinances. And weren't citations, you were criminally liable if you did that, were invalid based on the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is one prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment, which, usually you think of, certain death sentences or other things like that. But there is a line of cases that basically says the status of being something that you can't help cannot be criminalized. For example, years and years ago, some state made it a crime to be a drug addict, not to have possession of drugs, not to sell drugs, not to steal to get drugs, but just to be an addict. And the court said that's a status that they can't control. Similarly, in this case, the plaintiff successfully argued to the Ninth Circuit that criminalizing the behavior of sleeping when you have to sleep as a person is unconstitutional. And so you do have this dilemma now as cities on what you can regulate and how you can regulate it. But to me, and somebody could argue and win, I suppose, that it's clear that the Boise case said, one, it's criminal behavior, not citation, not nuisance kind of thing. And number two, camping with more than just a sleeping bag and a bedroll might be okay. But in Boise, unfortunately for the city, under the camping ordinance, they arrested a woman who was simply wrapped in a blanket with her shoes off. And the court said, you may regulate certain times and places, you may regulate kind of structures, but you can't regulate and criminalize the behavior of someone who is homeless and doesn't have a place to sleep. Unless there's shelters available too. So that was the other dynamic of that case. And so if there are shelters available, then you can criminalize that behavior. I believe what we're proposing today and also our current ordinances pass muster under that test based on the fact that, one, we don't criminalize it, and two, we're not saying the act of being homeless, the act of having to sleep somewhere isn't. It doesn't apply, it doesn't matter whether you're homeless or not, okay? So with that, I prepared this based on Salem's ordinance, and I wanted to touch base real briefly on some of the findings, which I did have to admit I took mainly from Salem. I thought were very good, and then I'm going to point out a part that is different than Salem's. But you can see on the first page, the findings go on for about 3 pages. For example, B and C in the first one, maintaining pedestrian and authorized commercial activity, et cetera, are essential to public safety and welfare, thriving neighborhoods, and economic vitality. And then C, camping on public sidewalks, public property, public rights-of-way is not the ordinary, customary, intended use of public sidewalks, public property, which I think everyone can agree with. I mean, camping is not what we usually see our public right-of-ways used for. And one that I talked to a couple different people about, well, I'll go on the next page, camping, and G, camping is an incompatible and detrimental use of the public sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way. And one that's just sort of a minor point in a way, but not so minor, is the last one on page 4 at the top. N, campsites can also obstruct and delay emergency personnel responding to emergencies. You think of some of these campsites blocking the sidewalk perhaps, but even if they're not on the sidewalk, if they're in what I call the parking strip area, the landscaped area, that can block emergency personnel. And so there's good reasons why it's appropriate to address this issue. If you go on to the actual prohibition portion, which is on page 4 of the ordinance, section 2, and I want to read this for folks that haven't had a chance to read it or don't have a copy. It defines campsite means any place where a tent or any structure or assembly of materials that provides shelter to one or more persons, or where there is a collection of personal property indicative of a person's intent to dwell temporarily. And it goes on to say is to camp means to set up or remain in a campsite, etc. Salem's, ours is stricter than Salem's in this section, and I want to make sure folks understand that. Campsite in Salem means a tent or any assembly of structure that has a roof and one side. So in this, you can see that you don't have to have a structure necessarily to camp. But as I indicated earlier, the Boise case makes it pretty clear that you can't just have a blanket or a sleeping bag. You have to kind of set up a temporary dwelling place in a sense, or be attempting to. So you can see on the dais, and then I sent an email, I added a new revised section, which is before you, that makes the violation also a citation, an infraction offense. And so when you get to that point, if the council so chooses to adopt it, you will refer to as revised. It's not really amended because you haven't adopted it, but the revised version as handed out. That is kind of the end of my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report? Starting on this end. Okay. So at this point then, I'd like to hear, I'll call up people who have signed up for public testimony, and we'd like to hear from you. And I'll start off with Sandra McCulloch-Jones. And on deck is Jonathan Thompson. And if you would just state your name and your city of residence, not necessarily your address, for the record, and if the microphone is pointed toward you, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Sandra McCulloch-Jones. I do live here in Keizer. I was born and raised in Keizer, and my 2 children were born here. I moved away when I was young, a young adult, and came back to Keizer 9 years ago to care for my aging parents who have now passed. I actually own 2 homes in Keizer, live in one and rent one. I care deeply about this community. In May of 2005, my young Navy son was stationed on the U.S. Nimitz. The Nimitz was the first ship to arrive in the Gulf port in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. It was the trauma of war that set him on a path of drug use and homelessness. Shortly after his Navy service as a disabled veteran, he received a traumatic brain injury as he was a victim of an attempted robbery. That was more than 11 years ago. Today, he is unable to process social systems, self-medicates with drugs, and relies on social services to survive living on the streets. Despite my best efforts to secure housing, counseling, and medical service, I now understand he is incapable of understanding and accepting help. He is a story too often found in homeless communities. At this time, I do not know where he is, or if he's even still alive. I haven't seen my son or had contact with him for more than 5 years. As a mother, that is a terrible burden to live with. When I read newspaper articles, comments on social media, or listen to testimonies like tonight's forum will have, I think they are talking about my son. They are talking about a young man who served his country and was left with significant mental and emotional challenges. I think about the people making uninformed comments like people choose to be homeless. Yes, there are some who do choose, but many do not. And how naive and sad that is of them. I wonder what they would say if that person on the street were their son, their daughter, their mother, their father, their brother, their uncle, on and on. I can only hope wherever he is a part of a community that supports him and all of his challenges. I believe government has the capacity and the responsibility to help people like this. I also believe it is morally indefensible to do nothing. Government is an imperfect tool, but necessary one to address community challenges. I ask you to remember you are elected to serve all people who live, work, and play here in Keizer, in our community. And yes, that includes our homeless neighbors. I ask you not to judge why someone is homeless. Listen to their stories and then help them design to help themselves. I ask that you not give into the fear you feel and hear about homeless people. You owe us, as our elected officials, to consider the moral consequences of doing nothing and the moral benefit of working hard to find viable solutions to this heartbreaking condition in our community. Thank you for listening. And I just ask that if you do choose to support this ordinance, what are you going to do for better services in this community? There's not enough, we all know that. I'm only aware of 2, one's for women and the other has 10 beds. We need better services. Thank you.
If you would wait just a moment for questions. First of all, thank you to your son for his service to our country. And I'm deeply sorry and sad to hear about how he has, where he is at this place and time. And doing nothing, you are absolutely right, is not an option. And it is something that the city of Keizer has chosen, that's a path that we are not on. We are a very active member of the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, which has, through the Homeless Initiative, made tremendous strides in refocusing and bringing new resources to address those individualized needs. You are absolutely right. Every single person in our community is an individual. And that is the approach that we have taken collaboratively for our community to do exactly that. So Keizer's not trying to go it alone. We can't. Government's not trying to go it alone. We can't. But through the collaboration, we have been able to expand services. I could go on for about an hour or so on how we have done exactly that. And I know that's not the topic for this evening, but we have done several work sessions on the Homeless Initiative. And I would encourage everyone in the audience to please go to the website and see what we are doing as a community-wide effort to ensure that the services that we are providing and going to continue to provide are meaningful and effective for the members of our community who need them. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward to us. Questions or comments? Councilor Reed, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's really important to, as we have this discussion, as we have this forum, to understand that this ordinance is not meant to be anti-homelessness. This is not, or anti-homeless. This is not an attempt for us to clean up Keizer in that respect. I wanted to point out section K in this ordinance, and I just wanted to kind of quote part, because this really stood out to me as part of this ordinance. It says, "The city of Keizer is a compassionate city and desires to help persons experiencing residential instability or homelessness to transition to safe and permanent housing." And then the rest of that is, however, allowing camping on our public sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way in our neighborhoods and in other areas of our city does not help people transition to housing and has a detrimental effect on the economic vitality of the city and the public safety and welfare. This part really jumped out at me to differentiate this issue, because I think it's easy to look at what Salem has done and what other cities have done and say, oh, you know, we're just trying to push these unfortunate people into other, you know, for other people to deal with it. And that is not what we're saying at all with this ordinance. As Mayor Clark points out, we are working very diligently to try to improve our homeless resources and to connect people with the resources that they need. So I think it's really important as we discuss this to keep that differentiation in mind. So I really appreciate you coming tonight, because I was a little worried that we wouldn't hear this side of it, that we wouldn't hear this voice, because I have heard other voices, and I can imagine, you know, and Jimmy Jones is one who constantly is helping us see this perspective. But I really appreciate that you did come tonight and help us understand the human element of this, and how it's more than just a political issue. It's more than just a, you know, save our city kind of issue. We are indeed trying to take care of all of our citizens, including our homeless, and it's important for us to understand the complicated nature of that problem. So thank you for coming tonight, and I just kind of wanted to
It's a heartbreaking issue. It really is.
It truly is. It's very heartbreaking. And we're just going to keep plowing forward on some initiatives that have already begun to bear fruit. And we're going to continue to do that in 2020. Well, one of the key areas where we succeeded with incredible rapidity was the reestablishment of our continuum of care with the Housing and Urban Development Department from the federal government. Our application, with the help of this administration, was turned around in 5 days, because with their help, it was put together so effectively. So we're going to be able to marshal more resources more quickly than we thought. But it's because we have a tremendous collaboration among service providers to make sure that what we're doing actually means something, not push people aside, not think or guess or, well, maybe, but act in a way that is responsible for all concerned. Thank you so much, and we will keep you in our thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Thompson, you're up, and then Richard Walsh, you're on deck. And just your name and city of residence for the record, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jonathan Thompson. I'm a Keizer resident, and I'm also president of the Keizer Chamber of Commerce here on their behalf today. We're glad that the Keizer City Council is taking a look at this issue. The Chamber has been offering hands up in a variety of ways. This last year's Giving Basket program delivered food boxes to almost 200 families, some of which were homeless, and gifts at Christmas for over 500 children. We've also been actively involved with the Union Gospel Mission's Samoka House here in town. Our Men of Action group helped with their recent playground upgrades, and in what can pretty much only be described as a Christmas miracle, through a more than $1,000 donation from one of our members, the Keizer Liquor Store, to the Giving Basket program, we were able to help provide Christmas presents at the last minute to the kids at Samoka House, and it was a blessing for all involved. The chamber staff has been a partner with the group at Arches, and in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, was able to connect somebody who was housing insecure at just the right moment to keep them from becoming homeless, and that was a wonderful experience for all involved. And members of our organization also serve on the Salem Keizer School District Collaborative, which, as many of you have read, is now focusing some of its attention on the homeless issue, both for homeless youth and students and all the way up the family chain. So, but on the other side, our members have also experienced some very negative aspects for the homeless crisis. Some have invested thousands cleaning up property damage and repairing things, and others report drug paraphernalia, including used needles and spent fentanyl patches that they have to clean up in the morning before kids arrive at their facility. So we have a lot of work to do, and we will continue to help where we can to be a productive voice for change. As a region, we're making progress, but what we're doing, we have a lot of work. We have a long way to go. I mean, the evidence is everywhere. Just last night, my family and I were in downtown Salem, and we hadn't been there in quite some time, and the area behind Rite Aid is shocking. I have no other word to describe that but shocking. We cannot just turn a blind eye and let things continue as they're going. The status quo is beneath all of us. We see this ordinance as a necessary tool in the toolbox for Keizer Police and Keizer City Government, and we support its passage. I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Thompson? Thank you for mentioning the encampment that many of us are aware of around the Rite Aid facility. We got an email today, and that will be made available to the public from Jimmy Jones at Arches. He's the executive director of the Community Action Agency, and Arches is one of their programs. But they were talking about the interviews they have done with all of the people who are camping in that area. All of them, I think just about all of them, were already in the database that they already have. They've made contact before and are continuing to make contact with them on offering appropriate services and support. So there's been a very active effort to reach out to every single person who is there and move forward. There are a lot of barriers that we are aware of, some of them individual and some of them regulatory, that make this very, very difficult. I appreciate the support of the Chamber of Commerce, because employment is such an important part of the path to dignity and health for so many people. And I know many of our local businesses have done a great job of being part of the collaboration to provide employment opportunities and training. SEDCOR, the Strategic Economic Development Corporation, did a panel on that 2 months ago, and it was absolutely heartwarming and wonderful to hear how so many of our employers are now partnered in breaking down barriers to employment. So thank you to the Chamber and all of your members for that.
Thank you.
So any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh. And I believe we have a handout that has been provided to us by Richard Walsh, and that is the Conestoga Huts offer more options for housing the homeless. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Your name and city of residence for the record, and the time is yours.
Yes, my name is Richard Walsh. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Richard Walsh, and I'm a resident of the city of Keizer. I'm also a business owner in the city of Keizer, and I'm also the father of a business owner in the city of Salem that has businesses that are frequented by homeless people that need a place to get out of the rain. And I recognize what the Chamber of Commerce just said, and I think it is, we need to have a plan that does not result in businesses having people in their doorways in order to get out of the rain. But I also got to tell you that I was extremely heartbroken. It was just heartbreaking to watch the people that were huddled underneath the bridge in Salem. And then Salem's brilliant idea to just push them out, and that will just make a law to say you can't do that anymore. And then to watch the very next day, I don't know if you went downtown the next day, but we did, and it was pouring down rain. And there were people standing now, not under the bridge where they could at least get out of the rain, but now they're standing in the cold, wet rain with nowhere else to go. And some of them put out their tents and things, and the city of Salem eventually, because it's illegal, pushed some of those in a cleanup operation and pushed them right into the dirt and the mud. There's people carrying their sleeping bags around in the rain. They're soaking wet. I mean, This is a crisis that we're facing right now, and it's of humanitarian proportions. Even every country in the world that's dealt with economic refugees has dealt with it in different ways, but very few of them have just said, you're outlawed. We can't allow this to happen. So I do agree with the general idea of what you're trying to do. We want to make businesses safe. We want to make the city look nice. I do agree with that general idea, but we have to have a plan of how to do it. We have to have a plan of where can these people go. When they say, well, where do I go? We should have an answer for them of where they can go, and not just down the street. And so other cities have faced this problem, and they have came up with some solutions. There's all kinds of ideas that I would really ask that you have a plan so that when you kick somebody out, you'll say where to go. And I don't mean tell them where to go. I mean tell them where to go. And I think that we have all kinds of options. There's different cities that have done it. We have vacant parking lots throughout the city. We have seasonal parking lots in the city. We have sewer treatment plants with land around them in the city. We have, with conjunction with Salem, we have prison facilities with large swaths of land around them. We have opportunities of where they could go where they would not be bothering business or the citizens, and it would be humane. Now, how do cities do this? Well, one of the ways they do this is through the Conestoga Hut program. And that's why I wanted to give you this information, is that if you kind of follow along, the first couple pages I gave you was a governmental report when they were considering doing this in Walla Walla. They did do it in Walla Walla. They started with 30 or so huts. They're up to 100 and so now. I've talked to the people in Walla Walla. They consider it one of the sources of pride of their community. They have this area where people can go when they're homeless. And here's the thing, when you're homeless, if you're pushing around all your supplies, all your worldly possessions in a shopping cart, you're not going to go into a homeless shelter where you have to leave it at this corner of the street where you can't bring it inside. It'll get stolen. You can't take it to a job interview. You can't bring your shopping cart to a job interview and hope to get hired. You can't leave it. You can't leave it and go on a bus. So you're stuck. You're saddled with your possessions. This is a perpetual cycle. And we can break that if we just have a place for them to put their stuff. So the Conestoga program allows for that. It gets them out of the weather. It gets them in an affordable way. It doesn't cost $100,000 plus per person, which is what the other programs are doing. And it's right now. We can have people buying these things right now. I will volunteer to be the first person to buy one of these Conestoga huts, $2,500 a piece. I will buy one to start this going. And I know there's a lot of people in Salem and Keizer that would much rather buy a $2,500 Conestoga hut than the thousands of dollars it takes to clean up after the mess of unregulated homelessness. And I think we can really get something here. We can really have a place. And if you look at these pictures, you can see that they can be made. Let me just kind of walk you through it. The first one is a line of those. That's in Walla Walla, where they put those up, and they can be clean and orderly. They're secure. They can have a lock on the front door. Now, let me tell you something else about these big areas, these big places. I know about this because my clients sometimes get in car accidents and they can't work. And most of them have a place to go, but some of them don't. And some of them don't qualify, or they're mentally ill, or they're a Vietnam vet and they've got shell shock or whatever, but they don't do well in large groups. And they don't do well when these large groups have these cliques and they have gangs. It's just like high school. Think about it. If you're going to go there and expect it to be just a very safe, welcoming environment, that doesn't happen. You got men, you got women, you got old, you got young. It's much better to have individual housing like this so they have some dignity and they have a place to put their own stuff so they can lock the door and get on the bus and get a job. Okay, and they can start to re-assimilate into society. This has been the model that has worked in Walla Walla. It's worked in Eugene. They have programs for it. I got articles from both of them. I could go into great detail, but I see that I'm out of time. But I do wish that you would consider this option. And if you go through these pictures, if I could just have a minute, go through all the pictures on here. You'll see people making it, and there's like one bed inside, or you can configure it differently if you have a family. And I got pictures of both. They can be taken on a forklift and moved from place to place, so you can have them go to different places, so you don't overburden one neighborhood or one church or one facility. And at the very end of this, I want you to take a look that I did contact them already. And Kristen DeBuer, the Development Director of Community Support Shelters, which has pioneered it in Eugene and also was instrumental in pioneering it in Walla Walla and is willing to help us. She wants us to take a tour. And I would love to take a representative from the City Council and a representative from the Salem City Council and go take a tour of their facility and see what we can do.
All right. Thank you for summing up. Questions for Mr. Walsh? Councilor Herrera.
Thank you, Rich, for being here. And I like the idea that you're thinking of something and I have actually read about this. I posted something about this about a year ago, and I talked to people in Eugene, my good friend Greg Evans, and I like the idea that it's a plan. It's something, not just, pushing folks. I mean, I really believe in and I think Jonathan made some valid points, protecting our businesses, our community, and making it livable for folks. But at the same time, this pushing the punitive part kind of bugs me, the being a homeless, ex-homeless person. I think the only person up here. I think that the compassion is well stated the way Shannon wrote this on here, and I see a need for something. But I like the idea that you have a plan, and I've been looking at this too, and I talked to some people also many months ago, and it seems to be something that Keizer has an opportunity to be a leader in. We find a location, I don't know, at least it's worth a try, to try something, because this thing about pushing back and forth, I saw the interview with the homeless gentleman in Salem, and he said he was at Bear Park, and we pushed him over there, and I was it's not working, and that balance is tough. And listening to Ms. McCullough Jones, my good friend, I'm very compassionate about that. I mean, that you got to think every person, there's a different story for every person. So they're all not all drug people. I happen to know this. So Jimmy Jones makes some wonderful points. I wish he was here. And I like the idea that you have a plan. And I think that we should. I would take you up on that. By the way, I want to move on something, and I want to be there. So that's one of the things that I'm.
You want to go on a tour?
So that's my 2 cents, Mayor.
I'm willing to take someone on a
Thank
tour.
you. So I would, if you want to do a tour and bring back a report, Councilor Herrera, that would be great. The other part is I will take this, the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance will be having a board meeting on whatever day that is. It's coming up in about a week or so, and I'll also bring that to the Alliance. So with this collaboration between the school district, both cities, both counties, Marion Polk, and in the reestablishment of the continuum, what we're doing is trying to make sure we coordinate not only facility, but also the provision of services on site to ensure that it is safe for all of the residents there as well, and overseeing, because you're right, going into just setting up, saying, oh, here you go, here's some keys, good luck. That doesn't work. There are people, you need the support, you need the establishment of community, you need the establishment of the tools available to you for success. And that's the direction that this is going.
They do, Mayor, but they also need to get out of the rain. This is a
Agreed.
Maslow hierarchy situation, and it's the middle of winter. And Keizer or Salem is a member of the initiative, and look what's happened. It doesn't mean everyone gets out of the rain.
Well,
I want to have a program where people get out of the rain, and then we talk about what's the next step to get you reemployed. But if they're sitting there in the rain, some of these people are dying.
Yes.
There has been a lot of people that have died this last year, and winter is just starting to get bad. I would propose a lot of other things too, like letting some people park in their car. I'll bet you Jerry would love it if we paid him rent for his parking lot during the non-baseball season. I mean, there are places where people can be creative. I don't know. We can approach it.
Yes, you're right. And let me read a paragraph from the email from Jimmy Jones on this issue, because you are right in that people have to be able to get out of the rain so that they can get the rest, start to collect themselves so they can make good decisions for their next steps. You are absolutely correct. And that is the direction that collaboratively we're moving toward. The warming shelters were open last winter. They've been open this winter. We haven't had the freezing weather, which is usually the trigger for opening the warming shelters. There are 6 locations, and they are supposed to open on nights when it's 32 or below. So that worked, and every time those shelters were open, contact was made, services offered, a relationship building has happened. However, when it's not below 32, they're not open. So where we're going from now, I'd like to, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. It's called duration warming. We have duration warming taking place at the Church in the Park and Safe Sleep. That Safe Sleep is a new program that was opened by United Way over on Front Street. Right now they have a capacity for 10. They're looking to make improvements in the facility to offer more. That Safe Sleep shelter for women. The number of beds for each are small. We have as yet been unable to acquire a site for temporary or permanent duration warming, although we have looked at several locations. The biggest struggle has been some NIMBYism, some zoning issues, and flat-out unwillingness of property owners to rent properties for this purpose without a promise to purchase. The best building, anyway, they're looking at some different buildings and some opportunities, talking to the city and the state on some opportunities. So I'm going to skip down a little bit. The options on the table remain the old Toys R Us building, perhaps Value Village, maybe a site, a couple of areas are looking at downtown. Other options that have been floated are Hillcrest. The reason that doesn't work well is because of the lack of access to transportation. So he says, I will continue to look for a building ahead of the January 13th Salem City Council meeting. Not terribly optimistic at this point about having something locked in by that time. So they are looking at different properties for what they call duration warming. So you are right. We need to be able to provide that and provide it now. And the direction from the Community Action Agency and from our two communities is to provide exactly that. That can happen even faster than Conestoga Wagon Camp.
That would be great. The only caution I have about the large facilities, there's several of them, I kind of mentioned a little bit of it before, it's not all that safe. Some of these people are homeless because they have convictions for crimes and they have other issues. It's better to have them separated from your family who's homeless and going to the shelter. But the bigger issue is disease. These people are living outside. They're getting rained on right now. They're getting diseases. And there's tuberculosis is rampant in the homeless community as well. The last thing you want to do is to put everybody in one big room and have them all breathe and cough on each other.
That's why this has to be designed appropriately, has to be designed safely. You have to have the fire codes. You have to have sanitation. Absolutely. There is planning that has to go into this because we don't want to create a situation where we're saying, yeah, this will do for you because you deserve less. That nobody is suggesting that. We want to make sure that it's not a hurt, but a help, and that is going to lead to a path forward for every individual that is contacted. So there is planning that has to go into this, but that planning is underway right now.
Well, I would like to be part of planning on this piece with Councilor Herrera, with your permission. I'd like to go there and kind of find out what's going on and report back, if that's all right.
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for your active compassion.
Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up to testify. Please, come on down. And if you would, just your name and your city of residence for the record.
Mark Kudus. I live in West Salem. I'm the vice chairman of the West Salem Neighborhood Association. And everybody has some clear concerns here. There's no question we have a massive homeless problem. Simple solution. Some people know it as Hillcrest, some know it as Fairview. It's 45 acres. It has multiple buildings. It is set up for exactly this, to get people out of the rain. It's for sale for under $6 million. The state of Oregon, if you get together with the city of Salem, I'm sure they'll find a way to finance it. It's really probably the best solution. It's existing property. I was out there the other day. It's all heated and unoccupied. It's completely vacant. Where's the problem?
I don't know.
Multiple buildings, it's set up for exactly this, mental health. People get them on, get them on a path to something, place they can put their belongings, where it doesn't get stolen, where they can put their stuff. You made a great point about the shopping cart. Where do they put their stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Time to, it's there for the taking.
Hillcrest, just for the record, is one of the sites that's under consideration.
Well, I don't know what we're waiting for.
Well, if the city of Keizer was the only player here, that would be a different conversation.
Yeah.
We are in a collaborative, but we are
it's
definitely moving forward.
That's exactly what it was designed for, mental health issues. I mean, it's got all the ability, the infrastructure, the utilities are in place.
So, thank you. I do appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes, Colonel. Oh, Jimmy is here. Okay. Did you just get him? Okay.
Madam Mayor, City Councilors, staff, my name is Kevin Dial, a long-term resident of the City of Keizer. It's hard to tell which one's active. Thank you again for your time tonight. I'm a long-term resident of Keizer. I'm also a combat veteran, military member for 36 years, and right now I work in the local community, volunteering in 501c3s to help with veteran issues. As been mentioned by Mr. Coot and Mr. Walsh, veteran issues are very important. They are a segment of the homeless population, about 11.3%, according to the National Center for Law and Report on Homelessness and Poverty from 2018. Again, my focus is on veterans and that population, but I also, as a city member, I understand the balance, and sitting on the budget committee, I understand if we don't have a budget base, we don't have a tax base, we don't have businesses, we don't have homes, we don't have home values and property. There's a balance to this. I also worked with the ODVA in a number of initiatives where they have given money that come from the state coffers that they budgeted out to these issues through the different legislative agencies in the state of Oregon. Putting in grants, it's very important that agencies and organizations become active, not just governments, but agencies and organizations. One of the very most important pieces of this are 501c3s that are focused on these issues. Many of the communities that have been mentioned that have started up across our state have been driven off of 501c3s, people that this is their passion, this is their drive. I understand our budgets are very limited within this organization, and when it's a determination of a new squad car, a new patrol officer, what are we doing inside of the agency? Again, there's a very clear balance between safety and providing needs for all the residents. And I think there's a way to do that. So as I just kind of wrap up tonight, the four things that really are the top things: lack of affordable housing. It's a number one for everybody. People that want to be in a house, they can't afford it. They're priced out of the market. And I know we've done a lot through the city of Keizer to make sure that the growth and the pieces are put there in place for that. Unemployment. If we don't have jobs, the people that want jobs that are on the streets can't get them if they don't exist. Poverty is a huge issue. And again, 501Cs are that bridge the gap between government services and the individual. And then I would say, you need to be involved. Many of the counties around us, many of the cities around us are doing the same thing. Roland, good luck. You're going to go out there and you're going to see that it's going to take somebody that has a passion, that's going to live on site, that's going to drive. That's like the Home of the Brave that we had. Great initiatives, but if somebody doesn't put the time in and really kind of focus on that, that's their hill they're going to die on, then it doesn't have to happen. Places like Vet Center over on Center Street, a great initiative. It's making great transition. And the people that are there, they come in there and they're lost, and they put them on a program, and they want to be there, and they have security for their items, and they have a value, and they see how they can get back on their feet. And then it transitions them back out into the community with ability to maintain a job, maintain an account, and really be a productive member back in society. It's not for everybody. There are some people that this isn't the answer, and that is very unfortunate, but the ones we can help, we need to help with a balance between business and homes and children and communities. Polk County just put in 10 beds right next to a school and on church property. A great initiative with joint community partners done over about a year and a half. It wasn't a quick and easy solution, but there are answers. So, with that, I would thank you again, Madam Mayor, councilors, staff, for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your long service, both in the military and in the community. Questions for Mr. Dial? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have seen that Jimmy Jones from Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency has arrived. Would you be willing to come on down and visit with us for a little bit on some of the efforts going forward for shelter? I've shared some of your email that you sent to us earlier.
Okay.
And that will be made available to the public as well. But there's been a lot of questions about where we're at with the efforts to get people into shelter and to provide the kind of services necessary. And your agency has been a leader, both on the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance and in provision of services. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Clark and members of the City Council. I'm happy to be here and would be delighted to answer any questions that you might have about the current situation in the city of Salem and Marion County generally. I'll just kind of kick off by saying that there is a lot of emergency beds in terms of shelter in operation right now. We have 330 beds as part of our regular emergency sheltering that are in operation tonight. It includes SMACA, includes UGM, includes Salvation Army and others. In addition to that, when the weather falls below 32 degrees, we have our warming network that gets triggered. That warming network has the capacity for an additional 240 beds if we're able to get enough volunteers to staff the entire network. And in addition to that, we have duration warming, which is warming that takes place between set dates, regardless of the weather, regardless of the temperature, that is also taking place and has been taking place since January the 1st. It's small at the moment. We have 15 beds at Church at the Park, and we have another 10 beds at a women's facility that is called Safe Sleep that was recently brought online. We have been attempting unsuccessfully to get another facility that would be much larger and dedicated to the very large unsheltered homeless population that is in the downtown in Salem at the moment. We have struggled to find a place that we can lease for a variety of reasons. The biggest reason has to do with the fact that very few property owners in a very tight commercial real estate market are interested in a short-term lease. All of them want to sell, and especially in a short-term lease where, we're going to serve this particular population. There's a lot of questions that folks have. We've brought a lot of new housing online and a lot of other services online in the last 2 years. My agency has housed more than 3,000 individuals in the last 30 months, and we continue to house new folks every day. Though if you drive by Rite Aid and Nordstrom in downtown Salem, you see about 80 to 100 people at any one time that have moved away from where they were camping at the Arches facility over to to those two streets with the overhangs that are sheltering them from the weather. 5 of those, we went out and did a survey and a census on the 2nd. 5 of those are scheduled to be housed this month, and that's very important and very uplifting, but you also have to realize there's another 75 to 100 individuals there who aren't going to be sheltered and aren't going to be housed in the immediate future. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I would be very happy to answer any questions anybody might have about what's going on in Salem and the direction of the programs there.
All right, Councilor Parsons.
Why are we looking at a short-term lease for a long-term problem?
Well, that's a really good question. And the initial response by the Salem City Council was essentially to authorize a budget that would cover the operations for a 90-day period. The City of Salem is facing several severe challenges when it comes to their general operating fund in particular. They're short, and so they moved to essentially embrace a short-term solution. I have been working at the same time that we've been trying to find a short-term option for a permanent option. I believe that we need a permanent, dedicated duration shelter. The churches have done an awful lot to keep people alive these past few winters and have went along and changed the old warming requirements from 27 degrees 3 nights in a row to 32 degrees on a single night, but it's still not sufficient. So I've been working with various elements in the state government, the governor's office, Senator Courtney's office, Oregon Housing and Community Services, the state parks, several others, to talk about getting new resources to purchase a facility that will be used permanently. There hasn't had enough time to pass to get us to that point. My agency, I will not purchase such a building unless I know that I have a dedicated revenue stream on the backside. That's not something I'd ask of my board, but I do believe that next winter that we will have a dedicated duration facility for the entire winter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm interested in the relationship between your efforts and the ordinance that Salem passed that is similar to the one under consideration tonight. I know in your email that the mayor shared with us, one of my hopes with this kind of ordinance is that it would drive people to the resources that they need, and you said that it is actually the opposite that is the case in that email. So can you just address that relationship a little bit?
Sure. So my agency is the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. We serve Marion and Polk County. We have about 350 employees, and we serve about 44,000 people put together in Marion and Polk County in calendar year 2018. It'd be pretty similar for calendar year 2019 when we have those statistics put together. We operate 8 programs, and our central goal and purpose is to eliminate and abate poverty and the impacts of poverty for as many people as we possibly can. One of those 8 programs is the Arches Project, which is situated there on Commercial Street. And our job primarily there is to do two things. It is to house as many people as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, and then to shelter as many people as we can that we cannot house for various reasons from the environment that they are suffering in. So our relationship is that we are, the contractual element for the state of Oregon's homeless dollars that are coming into this region. We are essentially working very, very closely with the city of Salem to make sure that all of the correct resources that are needed for this problem are being brought to bear, and that everybody's adequately informed on what the reality on the ground really is. So in operating that day center there on Commercial Street, we keep very close track of every time anybody comes in for any service whatsoever, whether they come in to get a shower or to do their laundry or to get a meal or to get connected to services, to get a haircut voucher, just anything and everything that could possibly be tracked, we track. So we know how many people come in every day. We know how many unique visitors we have for the week. And when we had the concentration of the homeless population there in the downtown, the utilization rate was very high. But after this ordinance came into effect, the consequence of that was that it began to push some of the population farther and farther away from the downtown core. Some of them, the ones that continued to want to stay in tents, primarily migrated back to places like Cascade Gateway. Some of them filtered back across into Polk County toward Wallace Marine. But others, especially the ones who did not feel like they could get too far away from the warming centers and too far away from the meal services and other services that were provided in the downtown, sort of hovered. Instead of erecting tents, they ended up deciding to just camp under physically the overhangs near those buildings. So what we saw was that there was a drop off in the utilization of services as those people were forced farther away from the downtown.
Counselor?
So overall, that's one piece of it. Would you say overall that the ordinance that Salem passed has helped or hindered your efforts to solve this problem?
Yeah. Overall, I would say it's hindered it in the most honest and direct way that I can be. There's an iron law when it comes to homeless services nationwide. I mean, what we're experiencing here is not a problem that's dissimilar from anywhere else in the country, and especially on the West Coast of the United States. And that iron law essentially is that whenever government tries to embrace or enact any sort of punitive measure toward the homeless population, there are unintended consequences. And the reason for that is that most of these measures, whether they're city ordinances or state policies or a variety of different things, most of them sort of have at their base the desire to make sure that there aren't any homeless people in your sort of geographic footprint. That is to push them out or to push them into services. Well, that's not very successful because the homeless population do not disappear immediately when these ordinances are enacted. So if you were to approve this ordinance tonight or whenever, there will not be one less homeless person in the city of Keizer tomorrow. It's just not, that's just the reality of it. So frequently when people are disturbed from their traditional camping locations, what we see is that they go into other places that are difficult for us to find and difficult for us to engage. I warned the city of Salem and warned the community about this last summer when these measures first began to be sort of put into place, and when Wallace Marine was trespassed and when Cascade Rapids Gateway Park was sort of trespassed back then, that there would be unintended consequences. And that's exactly what's come to pass because the people themselves don't go anywhere. They stay there, but their circumstances and situations have changed. A lot of the folks who have been in tents for many years in those two parks that I mentioned suddenly are in places where they have to put up a tent every night and take it down. And it's much more difficult to stay warm, more difficult to stay dry. And as a result of that, many other complicating factors get involved in this conversation. Rates of drug use increase, all of the other things that you just don't really anticipate happening when these sort of move them around sort of pieces of legislation get enacted. So I would say, Counselor, that it has made my job a little bit more difficult, and I hope and I advise every city, every county, the state government, when I do talk about this issue, to put a great deal of thought and care and intention in what they're doing, because there almost certainly will be unintended consequences from it. When the city of Salem passed their ordinance, they imagined that all those people who were camping outside of Arches in those tents would suddenly go away. Well, they didn't. Instead of camping in tents, they took to sleeping on the side of the street next to Rite Aid and next to the Nordstrom building. And it's about 70 to 80, maybe as many 90 folks there tonight. So there will be unintended consequences. So, it's incumbent upon on all of us to do the very best that we can.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Jones? Councilor Kohler, and then Council President Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the concerns that I've gotten from some of the businesses that I've talked with and some of the volunteer organizations even is that every morning they have to go out and clean up areas. I don't think there's anybody here that's unsympathetic with people that need places to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody that feels that way about it. But how do we help people not cause bigger messes and bigger problems for property owners and businesses? And a follow-up question on that is that aren't some of the shelters, don't they have specific rules and guidelines that you have to maintain in order to stay there?
Right. So just to answer your first question, that is one of the most difficult problems in sort of working with this population in the current environment that we're in, is that there seems to be a huge amount of trash that's being collected everywhere that they're camping. And so even near the Arches project, we would go out there. I wouldn't let my line staff do this, but my managers and I would go out there several times a week, sometimes more than once a day, and collect all of the things that had been brought into the parking lot. And we carried off literally thousands of pounds of waste products from that particular, and trash from that particular location. But part of the problem isn't just what the homeless individuals are carrying in. Tonight, next to Nordstrom and Rite Aid, and back when they were at Arches, literally every person in Salem who has, a heart for this particular population is stopping off, bringing food, bringing blankets, bringing clothes, bringing huge amounts of supplies, most of which can't be used. So they end up taking from them the things that they need and leaving the rest of it out there. So a lot of the trash that's actually showing up in these places is being brought in by housed individuals who have a very big heart for this population. And then the other question relates to the nature of the shelters itself. And the nature of the shelters, one of the problems that we have in the community as a whole is that our shelters are primarily medium to high barrier. And what I mean by that is if you cannot maintain a certain level of behavior or conform to a certain level of expectations, you cannot stay there. And so the three big reasons that people don't shelter, that won't go to UGM or anything like that, is that they have a substance abuse problem and can't stay dry, so to speak, to conform to the behavior there. They refuse to give up their pets, which for many homeless individuals is absolutely critical to their identity. They've lost everybody else in their life, and having that dog is the one thing that's keeping them in touch with humanity. And then the third reason is, in many cases, people partner up outside for safety. So they don't want to leave their girlfriend, they don't want to leave their wife, and all of the shelters require separation. So many of them, and we have a very large number of unsheltered homeless women in this community, and so many of them partner up outside for safety. So we have a fairly sizable population that just will not conform to the rules of the shelter system we have in place. So we need a low barrier shelter, one that allows pets, partners, shopping carts, and to a certain degree, some level of substance use, so long as they can maintain when they're in there.
Thank you. Council President Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you to you and your staff. I don't think we've heard that, or you've probably heard that tonight from us. So first of all, thank you for that. I think one thing that we haven't talked about tonight, I actually have a long list, is the people that we're not seeing, right? So we're seeing the people down at Rite Aid, down at Nordstrom's, in your parking lot. I drive by it every day. I drive by the Home Youth Resource Center, which is one of your organizations, is for youth 11 to 18 that are experiencing homelessness or on the verge of homelessness as well. I've been in there. For the record, I'll say I work for Oregon Housing and Community Services. I am the home ownership section manager. My staff has volunteered at the Home Youth shelter several years for the holiday. Homeless is a big section within housing, as you know. You're quoted working with our director, Margaret Salazar. It is a conversation all the time. But I want to make sure that we're shedding light on the people we're not seeing, because we know, you know best, that there are homeless camps throughout this community. And I'm going to rely on city staff, but I did hear that Keizer, so correct me if I'm wrong, has 41 camps, homeless camps within Keizer? 43. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure if the citizens of Keizer knew that. I didn't know that till recently, within the last couple of weeks. That's astonishing to me. I've lived here my whole life. But you don't see them, right? Because they're not out on River Road.
Right.
You'll see a select few, but you're not seeing those 41 or 43 camps. So I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging the people that we're not seeing tonight. The other one, a big one, is youth. We have a large youth population that's homeless. And for, I think, most of the people in this room are parents, grandparents. It's kind of scary to have some youth, your shelter sees them, 11.
So,
And then the other thing I want to mention is, which I hope you will talk about it, is the point in time count, which happens at the end of the month. And yes, it's, I think, a daunting process to count people that are homeless, but it's a vital resource to bring funds into this community. And so I hope you talk about that, because I know you guys need volunteers.
Yep.
And I would encourage people to do that, because it's an amazing process to talk to people that are homeless and hear their story. And then, as we know, February starts the short legislative session.
yes.
And I'm hoping that you have advocates that will go to the legislature and ask for dollars to help us, not just here in this community, but statewide as well. So I just want to make sure those were things, as I heard some of our wonderful community partners come and speak tonight, and people on this council of some of their thoughts. So those are just things that, please touch on those. Thank you.
We are tracking, so there are two ways to count the homeless population. One is this point in time count that we do at the end of every January of every year. It's not the best way to count the homeless population, because the idea behind it is you go out and you find every single homeless person in your community, but you only have to do it over one day. Now, we sort of extend it for a week because HUD allows us some flexibility for that, but most of the counting actually takes place on one day. And if you could imagine trying to find everybody in a certain particular class throughout two counties that are as large as these two counties are geographically, it is it's a fight against failure a lot of times to get this done well. So we desperately and definitely need volunteers to help us to execute this count every January, because it is a vital part of representing what the homeless population and their needs look like to the state government, which provides us funding for these services. The second way that we count the homeless population is through our coordinated entry project. And the idea behind that is that we go out and we find every homeless person in Marion and Polk County, and we assess them for vulnerabilities. And we do that not just one day of the year or 1 week out of the year, but we do it every day of the year. So that gives us a much richer data set on what the homeless population looks like. So my agency has, over the last 2.5 years, assessed 7,000 residents of Marion and Polk County who were either homeless or nearly homeless, housing unstable, in that period of time. We are currently actively tracking about 1,800 individuals in the urban growth boundary of Salem-Keizer that are what we refer to as Category 1, the unsheltered homeless and those who are in shelter. Not people who are couched, not people who are fleeing from a family situation or anything of that nature, but just people who are living in their cars, living in shelters, and living outside. So about 1,800 individuals in the urban growth boundary that meet those categories. Of that 1,800, about 350 are in some kind of shelter tonight, and then about 400 to 450 are in their cars. So that leaves us about 1,000 individuals who are sleeping in camps or on the street in the urban growth boundary of Salem and Keizer. And up until this ordinance passed the city of Salem, about 300 to 350 of those were concentrated in a few blocks of downtown Salem, and the rest of them are just scattered and spread out all the way from the intersection of Commercial and I-5 up to the very northern reaches of Keizer, and from Lancaster into West Salem. So it's a fairly large geographic area to disperse that number of folks. There are a lot of them you'll never see. The individuals that you do see, the ones down there next to Nordstrom and next to Rite Aid, are people who are from the highest need levels that we have in the community, people who have severe mental illnesses that would have been 30 and 40 and 50 years ago in institutions of care at the state hospital. And then you have people who are suffering from enormous substance abuse problems, especially the epidemic of methamphetamine that has been so troubling and so intractable across the country for the last 20 years. We've seen a revival of the use of heroin. You know, most people thought heroin was largely a dead drug in 2000, but it has rebounded with a vengeance after the opioid epidemics that we've seen the last 10 years. So there are a lot of people that are both visible and invisible, and those are just one subsection of the homeless population. In that 1,800 or 2,500 in both counties, we're not including those individuals who are couched in unsafe conditions. Even sometimes we're not including people who are living with family or friends and fleeing from domestic violence. We're not including anybody who's housing unstable. This is a serious and very large problem that's going to take a long time for us to escape from it. The only hopeful thing I would point out is that we didn't get into this situation overnight either. Unfortunately, we as a community are about 20 years behind some of the other places in the state in attracting resources and infrastructure to deal with it successfully. We're about 20 years behind Eugene and about 20 years behind Clackamas just to the north and Multnomah. So it's going to take some time to kind of build our way out of this and to house our way out of this.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions for Jimmy? Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it on short notice and for the work that you and all of the partners in the community are doing. You're right, we have a long way to go, but at least we're moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've had 3 other people who would like to testify have turned in slips. Former Mayor Lori Christopher. And on deck would be former Councilor Amy Ryan Corser.
Thanks. I'm out of practice. Lori Christopher from Keizer?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for letting me speak to you. So there was quite a lively dialogue that was going on from the Keizer Times. They posed the question. I thought that was really a good thing to get folks talking about this. And I would like to encourage you to start thinking in terms of not moving the problem, but trying to take steps to solve the problem. And I think that we got ourselves into this, and it's going to take us a while to get ourselves out of it. But I think that you can incrementally take steps that will help this population, but also protect the citizenry and the children that are in the neighborhoods and that are in the public places where these folks are currently camping. I would be in favor in the long term of no camping in public places for a myriad of reasons, the least of which is the cost of the cleanup that comes with having to continue to roust these homeless camps. There's a great documentary out. It's on Netflix. It's an hour long. It's called Seattle is Dying. It really opens your eyes regarding what this population is facing, but also what the communities are facing in having to address the needs of this population. It's not in your budget. You didn't budget for transitional housing and homeless mitigation. I don't think you did. I didn't come to your budget meetings, but I don't think you've got that in the budget. Do you, Mr. Epley? And so, we're spending, the Portland I-5 corridor, they roust those camps every 7 to 10 days, and it costs $100,000 to do. So that's a lot of money at the end of the year. You're talking about $100 million. What could you do for these folks rather than just move them to a different place, rouse the camps, and we wait until we get enough complaints and there's defecating on the streets and it makes it unsafe for workers to try to get to their jobs and for customers to try to get to those businesses, so we move them along to a new place for another 7 to 10 days. And so what could we do with all that money? And my eyes were really opened up, and I really did not think about this. These folks, their worldly possessions, just as the prior gentleman said, their worldly possessions are with them. They're on them. They cannot leave those tents. They leave those tents, and the other folks whomp in and take all of their worldly possessions. So they're captives. They're chained to those tents and living in those conditions because they can't do anything else. So Eugene is one of the locations that has enlisted Conestoga shelters. A Conestoga shelter is a Quonset hut type affair. It's 4 by 8. Oh, yeah. Oh, great. So y'all know. Oh, I'm wasting my time. Okay, so the key factor there is a locking door. I can lock the door, my possessions stay in that 4 by 8 piece, and if Salem and Keizer share a UGB, so this makes this an easy issue to work together on. We don't have space. We don't have acres and acres in Keizer that we could establish a transitional housing zone. But one thing that you could do is you could ban tent camping, not tomorrow, but you could ban tent camping in a commercial business zone. That gets it out of a lot of the public places where a lot of public and a lot of children are. And work with Salem to establish, a location where you've got a few acres, not Cascade Gateway Park. That's a mistake, moving those folks down there. That is just getting it out of our sight, out of our mind. We don't want to know these people exist. That's not the answer. We need to do a better job of helping them, and in doing so, we're going to help ourselves. We're going to help, it's going to cost us less money, it's going to make our communities safer. And it all starts with a number of alternatives, Conestoga shelters being one of them. They're $500 to $2,500 to build. So you could incrementally donate some of our tax dollars into building those if we have a location. I've talked with the mayor about it before. I liked the Kmart location. Directly behind that is a business park where you could locate social services. Folks could walk to those social services. It's also on transit lines, and it's not anywhere, across the street is the vacant land for the airport.
Do you want to sum up?
Yeah. So, that's an ideal location for meeting their needs, but in meeting their needs, we're meeting our needs. But it all starts with some of the zoning, and the zoning needs to be in a commercial and business zone, no tent camping. Tent camping, it doesn't solve anything. It's the worst of the worst. These folks are living in absolute inhumane conditions. And we do it to ourselves. We've allowed it. We've let it happen. So let's not do that. Let's not move them around. Let's try to solve the problem. I think they should be segmented. I think veterans have different sets of needs than women and children. Look what Simonka has done. We're so fortunate in our community to have Simonka Place. They have I want to say 40 years, or it may even be longer, 50-year history of helping women and children. So we know that by segmenting these vulnerable populations, we can make positive changes. So let's take those steps. Let's absolutely work with Salem and push them to identify some land, maybe adjacent to an industrial business park. I know there's one off Fairview. There's a lot more acreage out there, but transit, locking for transitional folks to be able to lock their possessions up so that they can go about their daily business, seek social services, seek medical care, seek things that are going to help them get out of their situation. They've got to have a lock on their possessions, and they've got to have public transit. Thanks.
Any questions for former Mayor Christopher? Thank you very much.
Thanks for the work you all do. I know how much time it takes.
Amy Corser.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Mayor and staff and counselors. It's nice to see you. Can everybody hear me? Yep. First of all, and I'm a resident of Keizer, Lori and I did not just talk before we never pre-planned our conversation, so I might be a little bit repetitive, but I'll be brief. I think it's important to recognize that as we're dealing with this homeless crisis, the humanitarian issues that we have, that they're not all under the same blanket. I think we know that we've heard about the homeless regarding opioid crisis. We've heard affordable housing. We've heard the youth, and the youth is one of the biggest things we've worked on. And I know I want to recognize and make sure people realize the great work that this council has done for homeless in our area, and this is not a new subject for us. So I think that that's really important to recognize. But I also want to make sure we recognize that they're not under the same, this is not under the same blanket, and that there are over 700 nonprofits in Salem Keizer. There's great people doing great work and great resources, but unfortunately, a lot of what we're seeing is that the people that I've worked with, the homeless on the ground, under the bridges, they have not been willing to utilize those services. They're not going to the shelters, or they're choosing not to take their medication. You know, the beautiful part of, living in a free country is that we don't have the right to tell them that they have to take their medicines. So then, there's consequences to that. There's choices to that. So I think that's a tough thing to consider, but it is really important that not only are we trying to embrace a complicated issue where everyone's trying to help and make a difference, I do think it's important to remember that we have a moral responsibility to our citizens and our taxpayers to have a safe and clean city. That's why people moved here to Keizer, because it's such an amazing city. We're seeing those bigger problems escalate in the larger cities, Sacramento, San Francisco, Seattle. We're on a slippery slope. So it's important that no matter what our choices are and what our answers are as we look for solutions together, that we have accountability. So whatever we do, the problem is the budget's so difficult. As we know, I've sat on the budget here with you for 4 years, and our biggest priority has always been trying to support our local law enforcement. Well, now we're giving them more work or more things on their plate, when really those resources need to be divided up differently. And I won't talk a lot about the budget. We've all been there, and it's available to the public. But I just think it's important to recognize that we are all on the same path for the good of taking care of everyone. Keizer's always been about taking care of each other, a lot of empathy, but we have to do it being, number one, safe for our citizens, and number two, everybody has to get involved and engaged. No matter what the decisions are, we all have to get behind that and help make it happen and be the difference. So I appreciate your time and all of you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Barbara McCullough-Jones.
Mayor, Clark, City Councilors, my name is Barbara McCullough-Jones, and I'm a Keizer resident as well. I hope this is just a clarification question about some language in the ordinance as it was read by our city attorney, specifically the use of the word citation. When I hear citation, I think somebody's handing me a traffic ticket that I then have to pay or go to court and defend or fight or whatever. So I'm curious what citation means in this ordinance, and if there's a monetary attachment to that. What is it? And does that mean, as was just mentioned, we're actually throwing more work at law enforcement to go to the camps and to patrol the streets to issue these citations? And a follow-up to that, and I'll take a deep breath, is that what do we do with the homeless people who have no identification, who may have questionable immigrant status, who are afraid of law enforcement? What is that going to do to the trust that we're trying to build with our citizens in the city?
Thank you. Good questions, City Manager?
Shannon, do you have an answer for the first part?
So the addition that we handed out, the ordinance called for a violation as a nuisance, and as a nuisance can be abated, meaning the camping material can be removed. It did not have a citation provision. So it has a citation provision now. The ordinance itself doesn't carry a dollar amount. The maximum under our civil infraction ordinance is $500. Typically, the municipal judge does not impose anywhere near that. And I hesitate to guess what they would impose, but that would be the maximum.
Okay,
so it's another tool, in other words. It's not the only thing that would do. I would tend to guess that the citation is going to be used as basically an incentive or disincentive. I'm not sure that a lot of citations are going to be actually issued, so we'll see.
And then the second question had to do with people carrying identification.
Well, the second question was multi-part. And so just to attempt to address a piece of it, our law enforcement is already engaging the homeless population in our community. They're working with them, they're trying to get them, those that are willing, into shelters and find resources, they're moving them along. And so this ordinance doesn't change that. It's not as though we are not engaging in the homeless community now and that we will after this is passed. Okay, that's simply not the case. This purely clarifies or provides additional tools for the law enforcement community here to make things happen. Okay. As for what we will do in relation to or how we engage with people who have questionable identity or resident status, that's actually a good question for the chief. I don't have the answer to that. My guess is that we will not treat them any differently than we treat anyone else, which is with dignity and respect.
Got a question?
Divine a question out of that.
Okay. With regard to residency status, we're not allowed to ask, so we don't ask. So that's a non-player. Councilor Freeman asked earlier about the number of camps in Keizer. And our last communication, I told you 41, it's now up to 43. At any given time, the vast majority of those, say 40 of those, are not occupied. We spend more time dealing with homelessness than anything else other than traffic enforcement and non-criminal calls for service. So we're circulating through those homeless camps on a regular basis, making contact with these people. We have good relationships with them to the point that I don't know that there is any of them that we don't know on a first name basis. We know them all. If we don't, it's not a push comes to shove matter. We'll figure out who they are eventually. I would hate to see this become an intractable problem in Keizer. I would hate to see our public places turn into an unattractive part of Keizer. The PD feels some responsibility for that as the council gives us direction. At the same time, we are exceptionally compassionate in this PD.
Did that answer your question?
Yes and no, if I could have one follow-up.
Please
but
do.
I don't know, these guys both wanted to jump in first, maybe?
Mr. Brown?
I just wanted to add, as our code enforcement person is also engaged in this process, using citations is the last resort. So the first resort is to work with people, to explain their options, explain how to get resources. And the only reason that citations are employed is if the person refuses to cooperate or refuses after multiple attempts. It is simply a last resort option for somebody who simply will not respond and will not respect the public environment that we all live in. So I just wanted to stress the fact that simply because the citation is there, that is not the first resort. That is the last resort.
Thank you, Chief, for the empathy and compassion that you bring to the city. I know I see it, and it really works. I'm curious, though, if you're saying after multiple attempts of service, then the citation comes into play. I guess I'm not understanding the value of that tool when we're talking about people who can't buy food on a daily basis, can't pay for a hotel room for a night or a motel room for a night. I'm just curious what, it feels very heavy-handed in a very empty way.
Certainly, we understand the fact that we're dealing with people that don't have resources. And the only reason that that is there is because it's another level that engages another process. Certainly to you and I, it would get my attention, it would get your attention. And the reality is it gets many people's attention too. So it's just simply one more tool and one more, well, there is this other option. But we understand. It's a complex environment. It's a complex process to deal with people. I must say that the police department and our code enforcement officer do an excellent job of getting cooperation and do work with them in a humane way and are respectful. And I am confident that this is simply just another tool in the toolbox. It's not our arsenal that we're going to roll out as the first go kind of thing. I don't expect Ben's behavior to change. I certainly don't expect the police department's behavior to change in how they deal with these people.
Thank you.
That
Great.
good?
Thank you very much.
Council
I appreciate
President,
that.
Did you have a follow-up comment on that, or are you looking like you had a
Oh,
thought?
yeah, no,
Okay,
thank you.
just want to make sure. All right,
Good.
thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Something that Chris said and then Nate said, I just want to clarify and emphasize. I thought I did at the beginning, but I want to repeat it. And Chris reminded me of this. This isn't really going to change in any perceptible way how the city handles this. And my understanding is exactly as Nate and Chief have indicated. Our code enforcement officers and police officers try their best to get these people connected with social services and get help that they need. This is a legal issue for me in terms of a gap legally. I think that camping in any part of the right-of-way already is illegal in the city of Keizer and can be dealt with under the current ordinance. However, if somebody wanted to argue that, my concern was that maybe that argument would be successful, so this filled what I considered to be a legal gap, but not as a practical matter, something that we're going to be doing differently. And I appreciate the opportunity, and Chris reminded me of that. That's all I wanted to get out. So,
Thank you. Kevin? Joe? Jade? If you would just state your name and your city of residence for the record.
My name is Kevin Spade. I live in Keizer, Oregon. So, sorry if my handwriting was a little bad there. So, I just wanted to address the council and Madam Mayor. It seems as we're talking that this is just an overwhelming issue that can never be solved. And if we're truthful with each other and ourselves, it will never be completely solved. It never will be. But I want to say this. My wife and I were homeless for 7 years here in Keizer. This is 15 years ago. We were horribly addicted to methamphetamines, IV drug users. And one of Keizer's officers way back then, his name was Kevin Hill. I don't know if anybody knows him, but awesome man. He set in action our change, our getting healthy, our getting off the streets. And how he did that is he gave us hope. And it didn't give us money. He didn't get us out of trouble. But he said, you guys are better than this. Those words still ring clearly in my head. So my wife and I have been clean going on 14 years now. We live in a home. My wife started school at Chemeketa, went on to Corbin and got her bachelor's degree, stayed at Corbin, got her master's degree, and she's a family counselor and drug and alcohol counselor in Lynn County right now. I went on to be a pastor. I'm a local pastor here. I'm saying all that to say this: there is hope. That person that you see putting a needle in their arm on the street today, living in a tent, can one day be me. So this is not all for naught. It's important to realize that these people that we're dealing with have faces. They have a reason. There's people ask me all the time, what can I give the homeless? I said, give them your time. Give them your ear. Just for a minute, if you have the time, hear their story. They didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be homeless. It didn't happen. I promise you, it didn't happen that way. They didn't wake up and say, I want to be a drug addict one day. There's a root cause to all of this, and it's different with each person. It's never quite the same. It all has its own little DNA. I've dedicated my life to helping drug addicts, alcoholics, and homeless people. They've come into my home and stayed. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that, but it was something we had experience with. Is Jim Jones still here?
No, he had to leave.
His community action agency and Arch has played a big part in us getting the very first step. They gave us a home to live in for a year, and it turned into something great. I mean, we were their poster children for a while. It was just one of those things that, we got serious. And we all, as a community, just need to get serious about it. This isn't something that's just going to go away. I know my time is running short. But we can give hope, and hope is the key ingredient that's going to change all this. No laws, no regulations, although who wants them sleeping in your front yard? I don't. And I have a heart for them. My heart breaks for them. But I don't want a tent in my front yard. I manage a group of duplexes, and I have tenants. And I have a habit. Some of my tenants get on me. They say, hey, why do you keep running to people in recovery? Well, sometimes you're successful. Sometimes it's a good choice. Sometimes it slaps you in the face. It's just the nature of the game. But I can't help it. That's why God gave me that job, was to be able to help people. So my words are words of encouragement. I'll take questions if you have questions want to talk to a former drug addict, former homeless person. I'm here. But hope is the key word here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, what a blessing. Thank you for taking the time and the courage to share your heart and your story with us. And
my pleasure.
That voice of encouragement is absolutely priceless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselors, do you have any questions for Pastor Spade? If you have a business card, would you leave that with Ms. Davis? I would love to follow up with a conversation with you on some of the things that you have mentioned, especially as the work that you are doing can continue to fold into what we are doing as a two-city, two-county effort with the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, and continuing to find ways to bring hope individually and collectively to people in our community. If you would do that.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I don't have anybody else signed up. Thank you all for sharing your time, your thoughts, and your compassion with us. What I'd like to move into is to put a motion on the table so we can debate this ordinance. City Council President Freeman.
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance revised, so it's the one on our dais, prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights of way, declaring an emergency.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance 2020 prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way, declaring an emergency as revised. Councilor, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry to interrupt, Madam Mayor. I will read those sections since it was not in the packet, real briefly, if you don't mind. We should read the ordinances exactly. And so on page 5, it's under section 2. We added a new section D that reads as follows: violations of this ordinance are infractions, and the violators may be cited under the Keizer Civil Infraction Ordinance. D and E were re-lettered E and F, and on F, the second, there is a sentence at the beginning of F. that will remain, this ordinance is cumulative to other ordinances or regulations, including but not limited to Ordinance 2019-807 relating to street obstruction, debris, and public right-of-way, and Resolution 2019-2948 authorizing the city manager to order removal of persons from city property. The addition is the sentences that follow that have been added to the new subsection F. The procedures and/or remedies set forth herein shall not prohibit in any way any alternative remedies set out in city ordinances or state statutes intended to alleviate ordinance violations. The remedies set forth herein are not exclusive, but are in addition to any and all common law and statutory remedies for the abatement of nuisances. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the additions which were included in the motion as moved and seconded? So what I'd like to do is, we've heard a lot tonight. Oh, sorry, Council President Freeman.
So I just want a clarification in reference, I know we talked about it because one of our public brought it up, but on the citation.
Yes.
I know this ordinance does not put a dollar amount on that.
No.
But I also know that if for some reason a citation is issued, and this is probably a procedural question, so I may not be correct on this, but if a citation is issued and it's for, I believe I heard up to potentially $500, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if a citation is issued, and let's just say it is at $500, and the person comes in to see our judge, does he or she have the right to totally waive that citation?
The judge? Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
And I
depending
know
on the
that's a last
circumstances.
resort, so I want to make that clear. I know that's a last resort. I know that is not a first option, but it was a comment and a question tonight, and I also agree that if we have people that are homeless, the last thing they do is have funds to pay a citation.
True.
And so,
If the council wishes, there is a minimum, maximum, and presumptive fine amounts. I didn't want to presume to put one of those in. Our judge works without those or with those, whatever the council deems appropriate.
so
I mean,
we
if you want to
could
address that.
potentially put a 0 in there if we so wanted to. I'm asking the
No.
question. No. Okay.
I mean, it's not a citation at 0. So, I mean, the judge has the right to waive it if, under the circumstances, if the judge feels it's appropriate. He's a pretty compassionate guy and has dealt with situations, not exactly like this, but code enforcement violations. And he's willing to work with people on it. But you certainly could, if you wished, set minimum, maximum, and presumptive fine amounts.
Okay.
Up to you.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Herrera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I wrestled with this for quite a while, and while I make my commitment to help Mr. Walsh and follow up on one prong of all this potential solutions, I think this is the first step, and I have to side on the protection overall of our right away. I mean, camping shouldn't be a nuisance in our community. I mean, it should not be in our right ways. It should not affect our businesses. Having to know our police department, the compassion they use, I call it the Keizer compassion because that's what they use, and having to know our code enforcement guy, the way he operates, it gives me faith that they handle every situation with compassion. And the pastor that came up here and talked about hope, that really rings really hard with me personally. Your hope, and congratulations, Pastor. That is very heartwarming to me because it affects me personally, and I know that people need hope. But at the same time, there's a balance between protecting our community, our business community, our right-of-ways and stuff. We have to balance that by being proactive and finding something. And I'm going to be proactive because I'm going to follow up with Rich in one aspect. I know we need funding. It takes a nonprofit. Somebody said that very well. Our religious community, volunteers, government. I mean, it's all hands on deck. But I think it starts with having rules. And I think that our rules in this ordinance are written very, very well. I think, I read it and the punitive part kind of gets me, but I know the way we operate, and I know nobody's going to get a $500 fine. I know that's not going to happen. I just happen to know that. And in thinking about this, I think we have to take that first step and at the same time work on helping on the other end solution, how we can all help. And I will be proactive in following up on that aspect of it with the Conestoga. I've been researching that for 6 months, by the way. And I want to follow up on that one thing. And I think that Keizer can be a leader. I really do. I really think Keizer can be a leader in finding resources, whatever it takes to not just push them around, because like I said, every story is different. So that's the beginning. That's where I'm at right now. And I want to thank everybody for testifying on all sides of this, because there is a balance. And like I said, I have faith in the people that I know that work for Keizer, and I think they'll handle that very well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Parsons, do you have anything you'd like to comment on for this vote?
I just appreciate everyone coming tonight. This is an issue that hits close to home for a lot of people. We as a council have been working on this, trying to find solutions. We want to hear solutions. We want to act upon those solutions. So know that we are proactive and we will do our best to try to continue to help the homeless, especially in our community, get the services and get out from under where they're at. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Smith?
I just wanted to, again, thank all of you for coming. And I think that the thing that makes me the happiest is that we're having this conversation, because over the last year, we haven't. We haven't been talking about this. We haven't been addressing this. And even though this seems like it's a harsh move, it can be very heavy-handed. And I get exactly where you're coming from. And I have no intention of turning away from this conversation. And they all know it because I've been talking about it for 6 months. So whatever groups are out there, whatever options are out there, if you have an idea to bring to the table, please bring it. I'd love to get some more community conversations. I'm so impressed with the pastor who spoke. Well done. Thank you for being an example that there is hope. My brother's been homeless on the streets of Portland for over 20 years. I wish that he could change his life around. It's not going to happen. He has a mental illness. So this is not something I looked at lightly. But I also know we have to protect our community and we have to take action. And you know what? I'm frustrated at the lack of services. I'm frustrated that 10 years ago, that when I had a family member go through drug addiction, that there were no places here locally whom I could get services for this person. I couldn't get her into a rehab facility because there wasn't one. I sent her out of state for that. I couldn't get her into a sober living facility because there isn't any. There is no detox. You can't just take somebody off the streets and stick them into a rehab facility, because usually they're coming off of something that they could die from the withdrawal symptoms. We've set ourselves up for a huge mess, and now we have to find a way out of it. But this is not an attack. This is the beginning of a conversation. This is saying, you know what, enough is enough. We're going to set forth the rules, and then from there, we're going to start to do some really hard work. So thank you all for coming, for understanding that this is with compassion, but firmness, that we are trying to find an answer to something. And we need Salem to allow us to work with them as well. So that's something we're going to continue to have to push. So thank you again all for coming.
Thank you. Council President Freeman, did you have any?
Sure, I'll just add, thank you again to everyone for testifying. One thing I know, I talked to Councilor Smith earlier today in reference to this, and I'll put Tracy, Ms. Davis on the spot, but if there is a way that you want to continue these conversations with us, I think we'd like a list of people. So if we do have community conversations and we do partner with the Keizer Chamber on community conversation, and it's probably time for us to partner on another one here pretty soon, and I'm looking at the council or the chamber president, Jonathan Thompson, on that. But I think this would be, here's the start, and I think this would be a great community conversation to put some more people around the table, and let's look at some resources and maybe find some property and find some donors for our, make sure I say this right, the Conestoga huts, if I say that correctly, and or some other options. So Again, appreciate everyone being here, and really Jimmy Jones for speaking and then probably running out to share some time with his family. And I will find it will be later this month, the point in time count. I think that if you have time to, again, as I said earlier, volunteer to help them with that. And maybe it's something that we as a council can do together, because it is very gratifying to do that work. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I wanted to follow up with Chief Teague as far as the point that Mr. Jones made as far as a similar ordinance in Salem making it more difficult for them to do their work. I suspect that the way we do business is different here. Do you see this ordinance as hindering our efforts to connect our homeless with their resources? Or, because I kind of see this as a tool to sort of more complete our toolbox, but I just kind of wanted your input on this. Is this ordinance going to make it harder to connect the homeless with their resources from how you see it being used?
I don't know. Mr. Jones and I have a different approach to this. He's providing services. We're steering them to services. Our charge under this is to make sure that the rights of way are not possessed by somebody with no right to possession, and that the sidewalks are passable. I can't speak to the access to.
Yeah, and I admit that is a difficult question, but I guess it also kind of touches on this concern that we're shuffling the problem from one place to another without really solving it. Is this going to do more shuffling than solving, or?
So we have 43 camps in Keizer. At any given time, 40 of them are empty. It's because we don't let them set roots in the camps. So whatever the status quo is right now, that's what this will continue to maintain. If we don't pass the ordinance, you may very well have people claiming rights to live on the sidewalks. And then months or a year later, we can have this discussion again about whether moving them around then is a problem.
Thank you, and I understand that was a very difficult question because, you can't always see the future, but yeah, it speaks to, I guess, how we intend to use this ordinance, and I appreciate you clarifying that, so thank you. And, again, just as sort of a comment, I think that this is an important thing to understand. As Councilor Smith says, this is not an attack on the homeless. This is not war against homelessness. It is a clarification of our laws. It is filling a legal gap. It is, as Mr. Johnson has said. So I think that this is a necessary part of the balance. But again, to just reassure that this is the beginning of our solution to this problem as a community and not an end to the conversation. It is not just a Band-Aid to put on the problem. We all fully accept the responsibility of making whatever contributions we can to ameliorate this problem, and we do take that very seriously. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Thank you for making me last, because almost all the things I was going to say have very eloquently been talked about. But I just really had one question for Chief Teague. Is this something that you feel that you need and will help you?
Let me say, first of all, if somebody's sleeping on the sidewalk because they have nowhere else to sleep, that's the kind of thing that the Boise case addressed. And if they're blocking the sidewalk, we're simply going to ask them to make the sidewalk passable, and that's it. If they're claiming a possessory right to the sidewalk, that's what this ordinance is all about. We don't want that to happen. You guys are the ones that decide you don't want it to happen. We're the ones that don't let it happen. We're not going to put the thumb screws to somebody if they become intransigent. So we'll then send them to the third branch, which is to talk to a judge. And that's all this allows us to do. At some point, it becomes a problem we cannot solve. Then we'll move them on to the judicial branch. What he does with it and the resources he has or doesn't have, that's a different conversation. Obviously part of the current conversation, but on the side of the street that night, it's a different conversation.
Thank you, Chief Teague, and I'd just like to repeat what some others have said, that I'm thoroughly impressed the more that I learn about how our police department and our other services work with the homeless. Is very, very amazing to me. I'm at awe at how well some of that works, and I just want to say kudos. Thank you. And I think I can support this.
Thank you. I'm just going to wrap up with a couple of comments. First of all, once again, folks of Keizer, you have just shown me why I'm so humbled and proud to be the mayor of this city. To hear the voices of care and compassion on how we can make a real difference for people in our community just speaks to who Keizer is. So thank you for being who you are, and that we are already very active in finding good, appropriate resources and solutions and collaboration to serve the needs of people, all people with dignity and respect in our community. The commitment that Keizer already made 3 years ago was to be part, or actually 4 years ago now, was to be part of the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative. Recognizing that what we were doing back then wasn't working, we didn't have the answers, but we knew who did. Together, we have made tremendous progress to date in reestablishing our continuum of care, establishing more facilities like Crossroads and the facility going in over on Fisher Road, the additional facilities for people who are escaping and surviving domestic violence, safe sleep for women on the streets, and I could go on and on. What we have as a community have done to meet the needs of people in a real and effective and compassionate way, and we're not done. As you heard from Mr. Jones, we're just getting started. But by golly, we didn't start this, but we're going to finish it for everyone in our community. What we're doing tonight is ensuring that our public rights-of-way remain in the service for which they were created. Our sidewalks need to be passable for all people. We had this conversation last summer because our sidewalks were being used to block access for people to be able to walk on the side. We have people with mobility issues. We have people, families trying to traverse from one place to another. Being able to travel by foot is an important part of our mobility and our transportation plan. So keeping our sidewalks obstruction-free is a safety and equity issue in our community, and that we are just reemphasizing that, in my opinion, tonight. And saying our rights-of-way need to be kept obstruction-free is also important. That when you have line of sight, you have access for emergency services. And this is not just for a particular segment of our community, that's for everybody. And I think this has been really well written to ensure that we understand we're talking about the health and safety for all people. That we're not saying, our fire codes and our sanitary codes and our accessibility codes, that's only for us. And for a certain segment of our population, yeah, substandard is okay. I don't think so. I didn't hear that from anybody tonight or anybody on council. And we're going to continue to push for having appropriate facilities, appropriate services, and appropriate ways to help people connect for a hopeful future. And thank you, Pastor, for sharing your story of hope. And we hope that we can continue to be part of that story for more people in our community. Thank you very much. Are there any final comments before the vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. We're going to go to our consent calendar now. Council President Freeman, would you please read the items on the consent calendar?
Sure. Tonight we have 3 items on the consent calendar. Item 9A is a resolution authorizing city manager to sign ODOT, which is Oregon Department of Transportation, delivered project, federal project on behalf of the city of Keizer, Wheatland Road Multimodal Corridor Plan Agreement with the state of Oregon. Item 9B is approval of the December 9th, 2019 City Council work session minutes. Item 9C is approval of December 16, 2019 City Council regular session minutes.
Thank you very much. Does anybody need to pull any of these items? Council President Freeman?
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt the consent calendars, item 9A, B, and C.
Second that.
The consent calendar has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Council liaison reports. So it is 9 o'clock, so we will wrap up with this and other business. Councilor Kohler, can we start with you tonight?
Absolutely.
And Happy New Year, sir.
We have a new year. We have all kinds of things, but there were a few things that we got to do before the new year. I'd like to, first of all, praise the city crews and the contract crews with their continuing efforts to keep traffic flowing in Keizer Station with the opening of the new, most northern location of the In-N-Out. Thank you, and you've done a great job with that. On December 18th, I was able to participate along with Councilor Reed and about 30 other members of our community where we did what I'm going to call an Eagle Border Review Blitz. We did 18 border reviews that night.
Holy cow.
Holy smoke. It was amazing. It was a lot of work, and it was really quite an honor to be part of putting that together and part of executing a momentous, epic event. And then there was a football game, I think, that the Ducks played in. I'm going to let Roland talk about the Rose Bowl. And then Tuesday, coming up on Tuesday, I've got the Stormwater Advisory Committee meeting. I'm looking forward to that. And Wednesday, I'm going to the Community Partners Academy. And I'm not sure what I'm in for, but we'll see how that works. And Thursday, I have a Latino Business Alliance meeting, and then the Traffic Safety Bike Bed Committee. And then a week from today, we have the work session, and then the 15th is the Keizer Little League Park Long Range Task Force Committee meeting I'm anxiously waiting for. And then the 18th is the Keizer's First Citizen Banquet.
Oh my gosh,
Looking forward
already.
to that. So, let's see, there is a Eagle Scout Court of Honor Sunday, but you have an invitation, I think, to that here.
I was going to mention that under written communication, but
I was going to mention.
we did receive an invitation from an Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Michael Tischer. Sunday at 2 o'clock at Keizer Fire District. And congratulations to one of our distinguished number of Eagle Scouts. Thank you very much.
He was not one of those 18.
I'll be turning this around pretty fast.
It is interesting, though, that besides those 18, we've already got another, I think, 6 more border reviews planned. So there was a lot of people pushing just to get it all done by the end of the year. And it was amazing to be part of such an epic event.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Councilor Reed, school started again.
It has indeed. And Hello Dolly opens this weekend, which is the McNary Drama Department is putting on that production. It goes, it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this weekend and next. And you can get tickets online for that if you're interested. Tomorrow, as Councilor Kohler had mentioned, we have our Stormwater Advisory Committee meeting, and the Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting was postponed from the 2nd to the 16th, just because that was a little too close to New Year's. And that is about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Council President Freeman.
Oh, we have a busy week this week. Obviously, we're here tonight. Tomorrow night, we have the Charter Review Committee. On the 8th, we have planning. We're going to talk about upcoming goals or work, what we want to do, accomplish in 2020. On the 9th is the West Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting, and it will be their election of board of directors, and Councilor Smith is going to be covering for me, so I appreciate that. Sunday morning, the elves, there were 16 of them, along with two Keizer police officers who took down all of the Christmas decorations, and then on Saturday, they took the lights off the big Christmas tree. So it always feels naked, I think, in Keizer when we take all those beautiful decorations. So yes, sad to see them go, but it is that. And then Thursday morning, we do have the Marion County Commissioners Breakfast, 7:30 at Sherry's. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Smith.
Let's see, on Wednesday, we have the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors State of the City that you and I are going to. And then as Councilor President Freeman said, we also have the Charter Review Committee tomorrow. Again, something you should all be paying attention to, a lot of very important information in that. And I think that's pretty much all I have at this point. I've been on vacation, got to get back in the rhythm here, so I'm good.
Thank you very much. Councilor Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yeah, tomorrow we have the stormwater, he mentioned that. Chamber board meeting on Wednesday morning, and Councilor President Freeman will be attending in my place. I went back to work, so I don't have Wednesdays off yet. And then Thursday morning, we have the Commissioner's Breakfast, and Councilor Smith will be going for me on that one. So that's the last time I'll miss that, though. And then we have work session on Monday, and the Little League Task Force next Wednesday, I think, and that's all I have too, so.
All right.
Short and sweet.
All right, we're off and running. Councilor Herrera.
Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. Ready for 2020. Thursday, I have the Community Collaborative Executive Team meeting, and also the Marion County Breakfast. On January 14th, we have our Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting. And I believe First Citizen is on the 18th. Yeah, okay. I'll get to that.
Listen, I threw you a softball. You got to get
it. Okay. Congratulations to Junior Walling. Got his little full ride to OSU, or
Beavers.
Yeah, OSU Beavers, yeah. I hear they're pretty good. But anyway, he signed his, 2 weeks ago, he signed his intent to go down. It was quite a event. So he'll be going to, he'll be an Oregon State Beaver. So, and he's a grandson of two of our LAC members, as you know, the Glorious. So they're really proud of that. Also, I want to congratulate my good friend Sean O'Day. He is now left the Council of Governments, now Deputy Director with Veterans Affairs. Yeah. So, but he is still working with me with our LOC project for the Color Caucus, and that's something that's coming up in February. I'll fill you in on that. We have sports banquet coming up. That's not till February 1st? No, that's
31st.
The 31st. Beacons is February 1st, and that's something that I will talk to one more time about later. And I do want to congratulate our Ducks for that great win. I didn't make it because of an injury, but I had to cancel my trip. But it was still fun to watch. It was entertaining, and go Ducks. So I think
that's the only time you'll see me do that.
Okay, but anyway, we're looking forward to a good year. And like I say, I want to thank this council for. We've had some tough decisions, and I want to just thank you guys for all the hard work you've done and putting up with me. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Youth Councilor Wolford.
I don't really have anything to report, as I've been a little out of the loop, enjoying the break and whatnot. But construction is going really well at McNary. So they've made big strides. There's apparently one building that's it's looking almost done, although I don't know what that means on the inside, obviously. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, we're sure looking forward to that construction project wrapping up. That's been a huge undertaking, hasn't it? Yeah.
Not till the end of August.
Oh, end of August. All right, counting down. Just a couple things to add. On December 17th, I attended the Oregon Transportation Commission workshop with the area commission chairs and the Metropolitan Planning Organization chairs. I am the latter. Talking with them on long-range strategic planning, also with the change in leadership at ODOT to Chris Strickler I think I got that right, as a new director succeeding Matt Garrett. So they're looking at how they can prioritize projects, use the resources we have available for our transportation system. It was a very good conversation, and I'm glad that they are engaging with the local communities across the state, because we're the ones on the ground who know what we need, and we would like to be very involved in the decision-making on what those projects look like. 17th was also the Council of Governments Board of Directors, and as Councilor Herrera has alluded, just last week, we received notice from Sean O'Day, our Executive Director, that he has accepted a position as Deputy Director of the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. And I just want to say he has done a past master job at the Council of Governments as the Director, taking it from good to great and really solidifying the financial position, the services provided, and also renegotiating the new lease for the Council of Governments. He's been a complete delight to work with. I'm going to miss him terribly there, but he's left the COG in an extremely strong position. He will officially, his last day is January 31st, and we had an executive committee today to make recommendation to the board on how we're going to proceed with the recruitment for his successor. So again, I agree with you, Councilor Herrera. Congratulations, Sean, for a great work. On the 30th, I did attend a reception for former city councilor and former school board member Chuck Lee, his retirement reception, and congratulated him and thanked him for a long career and volunteer service to students through Blanchette, C-Tech, and 12 years of school board service. And then coming up, tomorrow is an advisory committee for the volcanoes, learning more about where they're at with this conversation with Major League Baseball. See where that's going. Then tomorrow evening is the Marion County Development Council Grant Award reception for businesses in this region. I'll join Councilor Smith at the Mid-Valley Realtors. And then you're coming with that, to me with that as well.
The
Development
board.
Council?
Yes.
Yes, fabulous.
That acronym.
Yeah. The joys of acronyms. Also on the 8th will be the SEDCOR, and I just did define that earlier, the legislative preview. So seeing what legislative concepts are floating out there for the short session. I will join Councilor Kohler for the Latino Business Alliance on Thursday morning. And then next Monday morning, I've been asked to join Chemeketa Community College President Jessica Howard for a leadership breakfast and a tour of the new facilities that are being constructed for the campus. 14th is the groundbreaking for the Salem Hospital expansion. So I think most of you have heard about that project. Our hospital is running at capacity, as we heard in our work session, so this will move forward with adding the capacity necessary for our region. Also on the 14th, the Executive Committee for the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance will meet. As I said earlier, we got our application to reestablish the continuum of care went through in 5 days because it was so well constructed, and we also got a tremendous amount of help from the folks at HUD in putting the application together. What does this mean for us? This is Marion and Polk counties will then be coordinating our care, our services, and also able to apply for additional bonus dollars to provide services for people in our community. This is going to provide a resource we have been lacking for over a decade in our community. What might be considered our equivalent would be Lane County, and their level of funding is 5 times what we have been receiving. That's going to change. So part of that long-term solution we were talking about tonight, that's part of the effort that is now going to start paying off as we apply for particular programs to be more fully and more robustly funded. The Council of Governments Board will meet on the 15th. And Little League Task Force talked about that, and that's what I've got. So let us go on then to, of course I put that down, silly me. City manager, this other business, this time is provided to allow this mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new or old matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. City manager, Happy New Year, sir.
Hey, and happy Epiphany for all those paying attention. So, to what time of year it is. I got an opportunity to speak to Cub Scouts last night, which was fun, about city government. So, and I see that one of the parents decided to take me up on the offer of attending and coming to city council, so that's great. Let's see here. Tracy.
I have nothing, thank you.
Tim.
I have nothing as well.
Chief Teague.
I think we've had a rash of stolen cars lately, not only us, but county and Salem. Incidentally, some of the recurring players in those stolen cars are homeless people. Seems to be no rhyme or reason why they're stealing what they're stealing. One of them was a Kia Sportage, if you can imagine, not a car that's typically stolen. I just remind people to lock their doors in their cars and not leave them running in the driveway. Councilor Kohler is going to the Academy on Thursday, right? Wednesday for the Elected Officials and Community Partners Academy, and Councilor Reed, July 15th. Available dates looking forward are April 8th, again, July 15th, October 7th. It's 4 hours and give you lunch. I'm telling you what, the lunch is good. Get the cheeseburger. And,
it's not that good of a burger, man.
Man, I'm telling you, it's good.
Oh, it's not that great. That's all right.
They saw you coming, Chris.
If you want to go, let me know. Thank you.
Phil.
Nothing, Matt. Thank you, Chris.
Nate.
I did want to share with the council that we met with Marion County's Economic Development team on Friday, and the commissioners have decided to initiate a new program where they are granting to local jurisdictions $15,000 for 3 years, which can be accumulated and for economic development purposes. And it's kind of interesting. They decided to give all incorporated cities in Marion County the exact same amount. So Scotts Mills gets $15,000 a year for 3 years, as does the City of Salem, as does the City of Keizer. Anyway, as part of that, they would like to gather from these jurisdictions a data set of priorities for economic development that we feel in our city. And so what I will be bringing to you is basically a list of things we know about and asking your input about things that we don't know about, or that I don't know about. As part of that also, we will need to enter into an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, and that hopefully will be on your agenda next week. The county would actually like to come out and make a presentation to us here at City Council at a future meeting. So I thought that would be interesting for you to know.
Shannon Johnson.
Nothing, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for any department heads that you get an opportunity to? Okay, good.
I've got one.
All right.
How's our recruitment going for the community center assistant?
Not great. It closed, but I do not know the actual number of applications.
Okay.
Not many.
So if it's not a successful recruitment, we'll reopen it? Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Written communications, I've got a couple of things. One is a reminder about the holiday card contest. So anybody who got inspired during the holidays and you produced art, or you know a budding artist who did, we are taking those entries between now and the end of the month for the 2020 holiday card from the City of Keizer. So check out our Facebook page and our website for more information. We'd love to get people who are still thinking about that to get them in now so we can get ahead of the curve for next year. We also I got an email about host homes. So based on our previous conversation, talking about specific populations of folks in our community who are homeless or housing insecure. There is a conversation about host homes and supporting unaccompanied homeless youth through graduation. And Patricia Julianelle, who's the Director of Program Advancement and Legal Affairs for Schoolhouse Connection, national expert on education law and policy, is going to join us for sharing insights regarding a host home program, which they would like to start here in Keizer specifically. This is in partnership with the school district, where students who are not living with their families would be able to establish rental histories and enter into some contractual agreement for stable housing between now and their graduation. So this would empower them to be successful long-term, but also keep them more stable in school to finish up and graduate. So that's going to be on Friday, January 17th, and there is registration required. It's from 1 to 4 at the Willamette Education Service District. And Councilor Smith said that she would be available to attend, as I can't get off work to do that. So I'll bring back more information on this, which is a fabulous addition to our services for our youth. So very excited about that. We got an email, I think all of us did, regarding Airbnb ordinances and codes from Thomas Toombs, and he was concerned about what he had learned about the establishment of an Airbnb possibly in his neighborhood. And I know that there was a response from, I didn't print that one off, from staff. Nate, was that from you, if I remember correctly?
It was from both Ben and Shane, responded to him and outlined that this was an issue that the council had briefly considered. It wasn't an agenda item, but it was a peripheral item as part of our accessory dwelling unit. It's an AD something. Anyway, so yes, we tried to find the listing. We could not find the listing. So we're a little unclear exactly what the issue is.
Okay.
But.
And this is not something that we have taken up at this point because there either aren't any or there are very few in Keizer to regulate it at this point. We're not a destination. Okay, we're wonderful, we're fantastic, but we are not a vacation destination.
Yeah, the 45th
except during eclipses.
Bringing them in, yeah. So I think we looked and we had, for what we could tell, we had a total of 7 listings. Interestingly, a few of them had their proximity to In-N-Out as one of their attributes.
Oh, we are now a tourist destination.
Turns out.
It turns out.
In-N-Out Burger spawning Airbnbs in Keizer as a tourist destination.
Hey, headline, where's Eric? Oh, he left.
Wow, you heard it here first.
That's funny.
Okay, so as this evolves, if we do need to revisit this, would you please flag us?
Of course.
At that point, it has not risen, at least I have not received complaints to the level that if we need to make changes to allow ourselves to either regulate the time, place, and manner, or for engaging with collecting transient occupancy tax. I know that larger jurisdictions that have more Airbnbs have gone through that, so we might be able to use their experience in that regard. But unless anybody wants to bring that forward and for the next council meeting or so, then let that be advisory going forward. Okay. I got something from the Leap Day lady. So this is a leap year, in case you missed it. And so there's a leapyearday.com that has a number of interesting things. I will send this out via email. I just got this in my box this afternoon. The goals of leapyearday.com is to stop hospitals from changing the birth date on birth certificates to February 28th or March 1st instead of leaving on February 29th, to get worldwide technology leapified, no more invalid date when we enter our birth date, to get the words leap year day, and leap day capitalized in dictionaries, and to get the words leap day put on the 29th of February on calendars, and leap year day celebrated by anyone as everyone's extra day. So.
Oh boy, that's a lot.
I think it should be.
Yeah. So awareness of leap year and leap year day issues, none of which are in the jurisdiction of the city of Keizer, but we can be aware that these are issues. And I know people who do have a February 29th birthday, and that is a struggle for them because computer systems are what they are, and they can't handle things unless they've been told to. And sometimes they don't even do that, even when you do tell them to do that. So that would be legit, to make sure computer systems can handle all of that. And last but not least, I received a letter from Commissioner Cameron, and this is to Dear Mayor Clark and Chris. The Marion County Board of Commissioners has been asked to submit a letter on behalf of the county to continue allowing refugees in Marion County. Under Executive Order 13888, President Trump is seeking written consent from counties to continue refugee resettlement in their jurisdictions. In the past years, the United States has seen the amount of refugees admitted fluctuate from 84,000 in 2016 to 32,000 in 2018. This year, President Trump has established the national refugee admission ceiling at 18,000. The refugee resettlement program has had a long history here in Oregon and in Marion County. Below are some of the specifics about refugee resettlement. And of course, we got that great presentation from Salem for Refugees. Since 1975, Oregon has welcomed over 67,000 refugees. These refugees have been lawfully admitted into the U.S. through a process administered by the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Population, Refugee, and Migration in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. This process can take between 2 and 20 years. Since 2015, 300 refugees have settled in the Salem-Keizer area. Catholic Charities of Oregon, Salem for Refugees, and Lutheran Community Services all work with refugees that are resettled in Marion County. Once resettled, local community agencies provide refugees support on their legal pathways to citizenship. With the new limits in place, Oregon could see 400 new refugees resettling in our state in 2020. Of this, Marion County could receive 100 refugees, with a major settling in Keizer or Salem. We would like to know your opinion on the refugee resettlement program and will consider any input you would like to offer as we determine the county's response to this request. If you have any questions, please contact Chad Ball at their office. Thank you for consideration and hearing from you. Please respond by January 14th. The county must submit the letter by January 20th. So with that request, what I would ask is permission from the council for me to sign a letter to the Marion County commissioners supporting allowing the maximum number of refugees to be resettled in our county, as we have heard from the Salem from Refugees. By consensus? Yes. Okay, so we will draft that letter and send that letter of support. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the main reasons that I wanted Salem for Refugees to come was just to talk about this particular issue, because that way we could understand it a lot more before we got a letter like this from the county commissioners. So thank you for allowing them to come, and thank you for your support on that.
All right, thank you very much. Agenda input next Monday, January 13th, we will meet at 6 p.m. For the City Council Goal Review and Progress Report. On January 21st, which is a Tuesday because of the Monday holiday, we will meet 7 p.m. in regular session. February 3rd, 7 p.m., we will also meet in regular session. And then on February 10th, 6 p.m., we will have a City Council work session. So that is all I have for agenda input. Is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, the time is 9:30 and we are adjourned.
Hey, well, I have you all here.